Okay, so today I'm going to do a simple sketch, work on a simple sketch on software called Medibang Paint Pro. So couple of comments here. First off, so I'm going to go with a 9 by 12 size. And the background's going to be transparent here. So first comment is going to be that Medibang would not typically be the software that I would use if I was doing an illustration or concept art or some kind of a job that somebody was paying me for, some commission or something like that. I wouldn't usually use this software. Photoshop is the most common one, possibly Clip Studio Paint I might use for some jobs. But for this channel, I'm going to kind of bounce around between different softwares because there are several different softwares that can generally work for doing sketching or simple paintings. So this notion that you have to always use Photoshop is not necessarily true, but there are certain things that Photoshop is much, much better for. It's much more flexible, and it has the widest color space of pretty much anything. So um, just gives you a lot more versatility. But some of the time, you're just going to be just drawing or just doing a sketch. And there are plenty of software where you can do that just fine. Uh, kind of choose a pencil here. I think I like this pretty decent one. Um, I did have to set up my brushes ahead of time. So in order to do that, you would go into your brush settings, which would be double clicking on that brush, and then you on any brush, and then you would need to import a brush tip, and then these are the options that you have. It's pretty limited. You have bitmap watercolor, a couple of different options here. Uh, but for a generally basic brush, you can make a couple of different types of brushes that work. Uh, it also comes with a bunch of different brushes. The only ones that I really like are the G Pen and the G Pencil. I'm not a huge fan of most of the other ones, but it's not bad. You know, the software is not that bad. Uh, you can you can draw effectively with it. What I would not use the software for would be if you're really into comics and you like to do good inking, then I would say you should probably use Clip Studio Paint. It costs about $100, maybe 150. I don't quite recall. Uh, and it's going to be a lot more versatile, and in particular, the ink pens are much, much better. Uh, Medibang doesn't really give you uh, enough control. When you draw a line with Medibang, the line is not, the mark that it makes is not a, completely accurate to the shape that you drew. And so that's just not acceptable for a finished inking, whether it would be a comic book or any other project. So that's why an inking technique, even though that's what Medibang is supposed to be designed for, it's not really a capable software for that. What Medibang is surprisingly good at is it's surprisingly good for paint sketches, for making kind of working out your idea and your general colors. And if you load in your brushes and everything into it, like I say, it's much better than you would expect. So that's what I'll kind of show. It may take more than one video to really get anywhere because I'm not super fast. So kind of doing a robot concept here. And the first thing I'm kind of trying to do before I really get into getting super specific on all of the shapes is just to build a simple kind of structure to it. You can see I kind of drew some lines to kind of place where the feet are going to be, how the hands will be posed. It's kind of a simple, it's a robot, but it's kind of a humanoid sort of shape. I do have a photo reference that I'm looking at, but I'm going to be dramatically changing it from the photo reference. So the idea is any photo reference that you use, uh, if a viewer saw your piece and then saw that photo reference, they shouldn't be able to recognize what photo reference that you used. That would be the goal on that. So a lot of it is playing with shapes. So on this robot, my kind of theme, my general shape I'm working with is mostly squares. You can see a lot of square and rectangular alignments. And then I'm trying to vary that up and make it interesting. But that's my general concept here. And then, being super sketchy with it. So not clean line work or anything like that at all. Because I can just come on top of it with another layer and clean everything up afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and make one of his arms into kind of a sort of a gun type thing, and the other one I'll make it into like a claw kind of thing. Maybe it might have a rocket on one side. It's a little jumbled, but I'll figure it out. And I'll have a belt of ammunition sort of just feeding into the arm here. So with trying to figure out a robot that's not really my specialty, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is to try to get a little better at drawing some things that I don't typically draw as much. And so I still do have goals and things I'm trying to figure out. And so one of those with robots would be trying to make sure that my logic on how it functions and how it works makes as much sense as I'm able to figure out. Okay, and then we'll have our little person in here, and he'll be small because I want him to easily fit inside the robot. Maybe he'll have a little mask on or like goggles, and he'll be kind of driving. Ever since I was a kid, I was always fascinated with the idea of somebody being inside of a robot and driving it. There's a name for the concept of being inside of a brain, a little having a little man inside of a brain that's driving it. Um, the name is slipping my head right now. I have to look it up. Some basic things I always try to remember, like giving them a safety harness and a chair, or some kind of, normal things you would expect to find, leaving room enough so that their legs can sit in there. So that means I might need to push out the shelf of the chest a little bit in order to make room for the character. And then his other arm kind of will make it more of like a claw kind of device. Might need to make the whole thing a little smaller. Just so that I can get in there and fit this sort of claw thing that I want to have here. And just kind of, for now, throwing a lot of abstract shapes in can be pretty messy. Just want to try things out and then refine that later. One thing I can do is just do a fill on the background of white in order so that I can see, or light gray, but just so that I can see better what I'm doing. Sometimes white kind of blasts your eyeballs a little too dark. You want to keep the background a separate layer because you never know what kinds of changes you might need to make. So better to better to keep that separate. Maybe make a duplicate because I actually couldn't see my sketch very well. And then Control E to merge them together. All right, so that's basically for this video, my sketch stage. Next, my final result on this will probably be a little color sketch. But my next stage is I'll probably actually, even though I'm not going to do an ink version of this, I'll probably do some inking onto this just to get a little clearer on some of the shapes. But I might not. I might just move right into paint. But either way, you can see how started with a basic shape concept and then tried to work out a little bit on the general proportion and everything, and trying to keep in mind a general kind of character to this, which in this case is that I don't want this to feel like necessarily an evil robot, but I do want it to feel strong and solid like a big, thick military vehicle, which is why a lot of squares and some weapons and stuff like that. So that's going to be that progress stage so far, and in a future video I'll refine this a bit further and see where I can go with it. So, and just have fun. So thanks for visiting with me today, and we'll see you in the future.